we'll hold it like this. Okay, can I ask you to sit down, please? And then I need six rapporteurs up here. One from each group. Can I please have a rapporteur from each group? Can I ask please people to sit down? We have one here, Charlotte, Zeynep. Can I ask this group right in front of me to sit down, please? Did you have a rapporteur? Was there a rapporteur from the group at the back? Zeynep? Yes. So could I have Marina? Dean? Perfect. Okay, the last group, Marina? The last group. Come up now.
Just one.
We'll see. But you know, there's no repetition, so perhaps.
Okay.
Okay, Marina. Ali. While the last group comes, now we're going to try and boil it down even further. So we just get a handful of recommendations, or no, not recommendations, but reflections on these two questions. So I will start at this end, and then I'll ask each of the rapporteurs to highlight one thing that inspired your group and one thing that you were most doubtful about. Don't worry, we'll capture the other things as well, all the other, and if you heard something already, don't repeat that point, but go down your list and take another one. So the first group, what inspired you, and what were you most doubtful about? And I don't take that one.
Great. So for us, we didn't just list one. So I'll try to pick what I think is sort of encompassing, particularly on the doubts. But for the first part, we were talking about sort of being inspired by the tangible projects that we were hearing about yesterday, where we are already working together and that we're seeing kind of the fruits of that labor, but also having an honest commitment or an honest conversation about sort of where are the challenges that we're still seeing and opportunities to discuss that more frankly. On the doubts, we talked a lot about a number of different points. So we talked about the lack of the focus on family unit, and we talked about a lot on coordination and sort of recognizing that we still have a long way to go on coordination within our own sectors. So to try to bring these two sectors together can still be quite difficult. But I think one thing that we were really talking about a lot was sort of making sure that we have the evidence base for where integration is important. And when we say integration, that we have a common understanding of what we mean by that, but really making sure that we're investing where we're going to get the most outcome. And so if we don't have the evidence that demonstrates that commitment or that integration is important now, then that's an opportunity for us to be investing in the future as well.
Yes, thank you. So we got Peter's introduction very serious. We just defined one reflection for each. So in terms of the inspired part, especially we talk about the child well-being and development. So we are aware of this really generic. However, we talk about the importance of contextualization of this generic definition and the child right-based approach in the implementation and the programmatic part. So in terms of the doubtful part, we talk about several things, but especially 2 points we would like to share with you. One of them is rigidity of system change and assumptions about this. Also, we talk, especially in terms of rigidity of the system, we talk about the bureaucracy and the competition. The other main point regarding the measurement, so okay, yesterday we heard lots of inspiring reflections and programs. However, we heard really limited part regarding the measurement. Measurement is really important, and we would like to learn more from the global to national and local part. So this is really important for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Zainab. We also did not just choose one, so apologize to all three tables if I summarize in the wrong way. I think, similarly to what you've said, the overriding thing we felt really inspired by is this sense of a common vision amongst us all here at the Roundtable around this idea of the more child development and a holistic approach. And someone made the powerful point that that also really resonates with the way families and caregivers approach services. And then that sense of experience and commitment in the room around that goal. So we're not starting from scratch. We've got lots to build on, and there's a real sense of sharing learnings and moving forwards, which is really exciting.
Thank you. Okay, for the inspiration, we had a lot, but I'm just going to summarize 3 because my colleagues have already talked about the rest. So already yesterday we had a lot from our colleagues, so we know that there's already existing platform for integration. So how do we build on the evidence and make sure that it's continued and it's cross-sectoral collaboration? So again, that links to a doubt that we have in terms of documenting evidence of collaboration. Yesterday and hopefully today, there's still a lot of willingness and commitment to work together. So that's an inspiration for us. And also, donors and practitioners are already talking, and we can see from this conference that we have a donor community, but we're also part of organizing the conference. So we hope that this will continue into the future. In terms of our doubts, already yesterday mentioned extensively that the current structures, whether it's within the government or the donors or the different organizations that we work for, they are existing in silos, and we don't see that changing. We don't see this conference changing that. So how then do we take the recommendations that will come with? Also the scalability of the integration models that we were talking about. And this links into our third doubt in terms of how do we ensure that integration is not left to those in the field alone. So this is about advocacy and ensuring that from top down, down top, everyone is engaged and is willing to push this agenda forward. Lastly, the funding gaps and also documenting evidence.
Thank you. As my colleagues have mentioned, a lot of these things have come up, but in terms of an inspiration, we talked about placing child well-being at the center in a socio-ecological model was a big inspiration that came up in our discussions, and specifically the potential that that offered for training and development around shared professional values in the two sectors, recognizing that there's a lot of crossover in those values. But that kind of led to one of our doubts, which is we feel that maybe some of the biggest obstacles or challenges are at the technical and specialist level when we recognize that there is a lot of integration and collaboration happening at the field level. But when we try to professionalize and get into more specialized terminology, it can kind of drive us apart. So we had some doubt that this dialogue at kind of this higher level or this technical level might not push the progress in the way that we all kind of want to aspirationally see it go. And children's participation.
Okay. It's challenging to be the last one because you have been mentioned most of what we have been discussing in our table. So as an inspiration, I think we agree on the fact that to use a more integrated perspective, looking at the human being development, so a developmental perspective will be one of the key, I would say, seems to be one of the pathway to look at to break the silos approach. And we were inspired by that when it was mentioned yesterday by one of the panelists. And in terms of doubt, there has been a lot of things around, maybe more doubts than positive, but one of those has been the only one day to agree on the what all together, but also to define the how and the relevance of that house at field level. That's become a little bit challenging for our group to see how that will move forward.
Thank you very much. We just have 5 minutes before we move on to the next session. So I don't know if there's any other reflections from the floor, people who would like to say something that hasn't been captured. There was one.
Yeah, sorry, I heckled earlier, which is probably not appropriate. So just to say it in a more formal way, we need to consider the role that children can play, notwithstanding all of the safeguarding risks and all of the other challenges that might prevent us from thinking about children as active stakeholders in these processes. But children can play a really meaningful role in identifying what the safeguarding issues are, helping to formulate the strategies that will help to keep them safe. So we should really think, if we're serious about this socio-ecological model, and even across the life course, we should think about children at all ages and the role that they can play contributing to their own protection and education. And, so I'm making a big plea to keep children central to this agenda.
Thank you. Any other reflections? There's one, of course, at the very other end of the room. Anyone else has a reflection? We'll take this one and then.
About if it will be clarified, it will help us.
That's very good, because this was a reflective session. Now we're going to get to the objective one, where we're going to attempt some definitions in 2 minutes.
Measurement and its indicators were mentioned, but I think, so I just wanted to point out that this can have either a unifying or a dividing effect, and we should be thinking very carefully about that when we look at how we are going to develop indicators of success. Because if we operationalize in such a way that education will have a set of indicators that they must fulfill and protection a different set, you will find people unable to work together as the field staff work hard to meet those indicators. If we, on the indicator development and measurement development level, can be sure that we make indicators of well-being that can be used across sectors, we will find that the work will follow. Easier said than done, of course.
Thank you very much. One last comment from here.
Just one concern, maybe very specifically to one of the sessions yesterday when we looked at the Safe Schools Declaration and attacks on education. And first, appreciation that we have global tools like that can help us, but also an appeal to make sure that they are relevant to the field level and broad enough. In Somalia, for instance, we've worked a lot on attacks on education, and we have big concerns about radicalization of youth and radical groups taking over education, having their own curriculum, and these global guidelines do not provide us very much guidance on what to do in those situations. We tend to focus a lot on physical safety, we tend to focus a lot in the response then on PSS and mental health support and what have you, but this whole thing of their ideology, or what is it that the kids are actually learning in the schools and who is providing the education, is missing a little bit. So it would be great if that could be included.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Okay, so I think we'll draw this reflective session to a close. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you to the 6 rapporteurs. Thank you for... And we will try and capture all those things that were not mentioned on the flip charts, or not read from them. Okay, so now in the Socratic model, we take one step back, go back to the objective, in a sense, trying to look at some definitions. And I'll invite Sarah to come up, and Andrea, and lead us through this session. And it'll take us till the coffee break at 10:30, but please do not leave the room after Sarah and Andrea finish, because we want to take a group photo. And that is the best opportunity to do it now. Afterwards, we break into groups. So do not leave the room, even though the coffee smells enticing.
So before we continue into looking at what we mean by integrated programming, we thought it would be helpful to pause and look at the different definitions of collaboration. Because many times, and especially during the review that the consultants did, we found that people were using the same term, whether we're talking about mainstreaming or joint programming or integrated programming, for the same concept, and then the concept itself was not well defined. So we thought we would, in a very short amount of time, come to a consensus in terms of our working definitions for these terms, and not to say that this is the definition, but just as it's a temporary definition that we can all work with so that we can speak a common language as we're going into the exercises together.
Thanks, Sarah. So there is literature on this, on types of collaboration, and we've taken a look at this, and it's actually can be found a summary in the app that you have. But the umbrella term that we've found is collaboration, and there are degrees of collaboration. So the first one is coordination. That's not moving. There we go. So actually there's 4 types. So we have coordination, mainstreaming, joint programming, as well as multi-sector, so that's in one category, and then integrated programming. Now
Collaboration, like I said, is the umbrella term, and coordination is the first step along this spectrum. So there's lots of ways to formulate a spectrum, but for our work today, this is one that we've come up with. And there are different degrees of collaboration even within each type of collaboration. So different degrees and different levels of quality within each type. So I'm just talking.
For those of you who are on if you go to the session, we've uploaded the PowerPoint as a PDF, and we've also uploaded a Word document. Yeah, okay, that looks at the terminology that has the commentary on these terms.
Okay. Yes. So the first type of collaboration is coordination. And up there we have the some components that have been identified by the literature for coordination. And don't want to read them out to you because you can read them. Then we have mainstreaming. So ensuring that child protection considerations are informing all aspects of humanitarian action. And we haven't yet really heard the opposite, where a child protection program is mainstreaming education yet in this roundtable. Then we have joint or multi-sectoral programming. The definitions that we found seem very similar, so this is why we put them together. And these are some components of that type of programming. And you can already see that there's some overlap. And then finally, this is the last one on the spectrum, integrated programming. So this would have the most components.
So I just wanted to tie in, especially with our education colleagues, because I know within education, we're talking about inclusive education, and it started out as a conversation about integration. And I thought that model was so helpful in terms of helping us understand what we mean by these concepts. So within a integrated, when we talk about integration, we're expecting the child to be accommodated within the school system. So really, the child has to adapt to fit into that school system. But when we talk about inclusion or inclusive education, we're saying that the system has to change in response to who that child is. And when we talk about integrated programming, I think that's what we were saying, is that we need to put the child at the middle, and the shared outcomes. And in this roundtable, we've been talking about well-being, the well-being of children. That with that shared outcome, that there has implications in terms of how we, within our respective systems, will have to come together and also adjust and adapt to it. And so whether we're talking about coordination, mainstreaming, joint programming, or to integrated programming, of course, as Andrea mentioned, there is poor coordination and there's coordination done very well, and you can say that these aspects could look the same on the surface. But nevertheless, it seems like there is a greater increasing degree of aligning oneself behind this shared outcome that we see from that's going up. So what we'd like you to do, I'm going to hand over the mic shortly, but we'd like you to do a group exercise to unpack to break down these terms. And we're going to split the room into 4. You should find stickers on your table that you will be using. And we'll be looking at what do we mean by each of these terms.
All right, so as I mentioned, there's a lot of components that overlap. I hope you can see that. Can everyone see these components at the top, or is it too small? It's too small. Okay, we'll make them bigger. I'll just read them out for now, and then we'll enlarge it. So along the side are the 4 types of collaboration. So coordination, mainstreaming, joint, and integrated. Then along the x-axis, you could say, we have information sharing, shared decision making, common assessment and analysis, common strategic response planning with common strategic objectives, joint resource mobilization, implementation, joint monitoring, and joint evaluation. So what we're going to do is assign each table one type of collaboration, and then as a group in your table, decide which component is important for that term.
So for example, let's say the first two rows of tables here, you will take coordination. And within your group, you will ask yourself, is there information sharing happening in coordination? Is there shared decision making about programs? Is there common assessment and analysis that happens within a coordination model? Do you have common strategic response planning and strategic outcomes? Do you do joint resource mobilization? Do you implement programs together? Do you do joint monitoring and joint evaluation? Okay? So you decide which one applies to coordination, and then there are flip charts over there that you would take the stickers in the middle of your table and just stick it on the components that are applicable. So if you say coordination, it involves information sharing, then you would stick that sticker right there. Does that make sense? Is there any questions? So if you want to assign the rest. Yes.
The colors don't mean anything, but thanks for that question. Any other questions?
Okay.
Is it very clear? Okay, so I think it's 2, 2, and 2, 2, yeah. Okay, so the first two rows of tables, can you put up your hands so I know you know who you are? Yeah, perfect. So you will take the term coordination, please. Okay, and then the next row of two tables, can you raise your hands as well? That's you, this table too. Yep. Great. Can you please focus on mainstreaming?